If you're tuning in without having seen our previous episode, you're going to want to go back and watch that one, because this is actually part 2 of that previous episode. Because I know you're all going to be so surprised at this, but Denise and I have a lot of words. And that episode went a little longer than we had planned, and so we split it into 2. So if you're just joining us, go watch the previous one. If you watched or listened to the previous one, you're picking up right where you need to. And here we go. Thanks for tuning back in.
Yay, enjoy.
Please just hold your breath. Every door looks better when you keep it closed. Keep your head down and don't watch your step. No point in even trying, now just let it go. Maybe they will write the same for me. Maybe this was really just a dream. Don't wanna take that risk and try to see. A 9 to 5 will bring security, I'm sure, but I can guarantee you that's no way to live. Way to live. Promise that's no way to live. Way to live.
So I really love that you said about all your checking in with God about stuff. And I just felt like it's a good thing to point out as kind of a reminder or a check-in within ourselves. Are we doing it even for those minute little things? We're so used to living in a world where you're supposed to do it on your own, being self-sufficient. And so, yeah, I believe in God, but it maybe just doesn't even occur to you to ask for those little things in the guidance. And I, too, can relate that is incredibly helpful, especially as I'm navigating this calling that I had no idea was going to be happening. And I'm, launched my own digital ministry. What even is that? I just learned that that's the word, by the way. I within 2 weeks ago, I learned that that's actually what my ministry is. It's called a digital ministry. Taking that time out and asking, it does help, because he does have something to say about it, and he is going to guide you into the best way. And then you don't feel like it's just on you the whole time. It's not supposed to be on you. He never intended it to be just for us doing it by ourselves. So if you're feeling like you're giving everything into this calling and you're feeling burnt out, maybe check in and maybe reflect on how much of that work you've gone to first, to the Holy Spirit.
Do you have, other than those episodic moments where you check in with him, do you have other ways that you involve God in what you're doing? Something that's more, I don't want to say routine, because that makes it sound like drudgery, but something that's more of a commonplace practice.
I kind of rope it into one. So I have my daily devotional that I do, and whatever time that is, but I do that before I dive into anything relating to the ministry or any of the ministries. And so when I start and I open in prayer for that is when I go and I ask about that. So what am I reading? One, for focus, because I squirrel all the time. So I want to make sure that I am focusing, and more than focusing to read the story passage, but retaining what God wants me to take from it for this particular day, or for however long he wants me to retain something for. But then knowing that I'm going into creating all these things is where I do the literal invitation to come into the process, in whether it's I'm engaging in a conversation with somebody, or it's a document that I'm creating, to kind of best ways to do that. And then because I have so many ideas, so I have to just write them down because I forget things. I have a list of these ideas that are backlog. And so I ask God, okay, so what should I work on today? Especially when I'm feeling burnt out. That's when I have to do a check-in, and something that we'll touch on here in a little bit. But what is it that I'm supposed to be working on next? Or do you want me to just chill?
And was that a revolutionary thought for you? Because it was for me. That maybe God just wants me to chill.
Yeah. Because I was always thinking, no, you just got to keep going. This is your calling. God gave it to you, and you got to work on all these things and make sure you're getting it done. You got to always be learning, and I love learning, so at least that's a plus. But yeah, sometimes it feels like overload. And so, yeah, it was revolutionary for me when I started hearing, maybe just chill today. What do you mean just chill, God?
Yeah.
Like just maybe recolor some other things that I've done, or like you just go watch a movie or go get a cup of coffee. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Same.
So I'm like, all right. So usually it's during that prayer. If there are other things that happen throughout the day, like praying over a friend, for example, I do a pre-prayer. I pre-game on a prayer before I pray. I want to make sure that one, praying for their needs, but also, is there anything that God maybe would want me to say that they need to hear, so something like that. So I'll also do a case by case basis, but I do make it a point to do that now. Whereas before, just kind of working and then prayer at the end, like, thanks God, great day, high five, let's do it again tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to do all the things and then you please give me your stamp of approval.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, way better to invite him in from the get-go.
Yeah. Plus, I have way less feelings of guilt by the end of the day, because then I'm not like, wait, did I do that because I wanted to, or because I'm imagining like the whole stamp thing, right? I just did it because I thought it was good, and so now I'm getting the stamp of approval. Or did I actually ask him, and then did I really just do a bunch of things he didn't want me to do? And oh my gosh, did I just waste a whole day? And it's things that he never wanted me to look at and begin with. And so yeah, I spiral, if you didn't notice. So yeah, taking it for every little thing also brings that anxiety down a whole lot. But also on the subject of how this ministry has affected my soul, because I write and create for different topics, emotions, feelings, whatever different studies I'm creating, it involves research. So a lot of that, there's a lot of talking with God on the research aspect. And then when things come out that are convicting for me, things that ways of thinking that came up from whether it be a past trauma, and that it's like, oh, you still have to deal with that. All right, well then maybe, and maybe God wants me to use that sometimes. And so, okay, having to talk about that, I don't like it. But yeah, so things like that, it's definitely helped shaped my soul, because I'm growing still. Felt always going to be a work in progress. So there's a lot of just good healing and growing from it, aside from the literal knowledge and understanding and context, more than just the academic side of things, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I keep notes whenever I meet with clients, just so I can look back at, so then the next time that we meet, I can reference back to that. And I often have an extra page for things to talk to God about later for myself. It's like you said, it's always a work in progress, and not in the sense that it's going to take forever, but there's always more that he has available for us, which I know for some people, when they hear work in progress, it can have a negative connotation, but I definitely take it as, yay, I get to spend more time with God, and I get to have more opportunities to discover really more about who he is and who he says I am. And so, yeah, my little separate page for talk to God about this later for myself, definitely been helpful over the years.
I like that a lot, because I have quite a few traumas from my life. And so being able to discover those new things, those positive things, is super exciting for me. So I don't dislike growing in God and learning more things and hearing all these nice things about me that I didn't used to hear.
So when you were talking about it's a much better process when you invite God in from the beginning. Then you don't have to think, well, did I just do this all on my own? Is this not even something that he wanted me to do? How can you tell the difference now that you know the difference between doing it all on your own and how it goes when you invite him in? How do you recognize it now when you're trying to do it on your own, or you're doing it from a very dry place? Like, I got nothing to give, yet I have to give because it's part of what I do. So how do you know when it's from that kind of a place rather than connected to God?
One of the ways of when I know that I'm hearing from God is when I experience fruit of the Spirit. So usually I'm feeling very excited. I have joy, definitely peace. Those are my top two for sure on that. Joy and peace, which then spills into hope for all of this that's still being created and growing. But definitely I feel it for sure.
I feel like for me, the best way I can describe it is internally, I feel like things are on fast forward and everything else is not on fast forward. And so why is there this incessant urgency? Why is there this feeling of I have to get all of this done? And so whenever I notice that feeling, I can tell that that's me listening to the wrong voice, so to speak. I'm feeling again like everything is on me when it's really not. And so when I notice the fast forward feeling, then I take a deep breath and okay, hang on. God, what are you showing me? Like when you said, I asked God for a to-do list, and it's so much better. His to-do list is so much better than my to-do list that I would make for myself, and things still get accomplished. It's amazing. I love how he does that.
It is. Yeah. It is amazing. One of the things that I thought about while you were talking just now is when we go through those moments, anxiety, whatever it is, feeling overwhelmed with things that you're working on, is that he's not a confusing God. Yeah. He's very clear on things. And so if we can recognize that we're in these spaces where it feels really confusing, probably a good time to stop and check in, because there's probably another voice that's trying to creep in and just get us off track.
That's another feeling that I have, is that if things aren't flowing smoothly, and it doesn't mean that things can't be bumpy, but I can tell when I'm trying to force something. If a blog post that I'm trying to write is not, I haven't actually connected to God and asked him, what do you want me to say? I feel like I haven't put a blog post out in a while. I need to write one. I better get this out. I need to do. Fast forward, and it doesn't flow. And so then I take time, I step away from the computer, go out with my goats and chickens, because man, that's really when God talks to me a lot, is when I'm just out there in his creation. Not surprising. And then all of a sudden I have this idea, and then when I go to sit down and write again, it just happens. It's so cool.
I get that too when I have to step away. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's always just when I'm out enjoying his creation, enjoying life that he's given me, whatever things he's given me for that day, and just being able to sit and appreciate that. That's when some really cool idea just comes in. I'm like, oh yeah, like, all right, cool. Let's do that. You know,
yep.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's like we get to just enter into his creativity that's already moving. Yeah. You don't have to manufacture it.
Yeah. The whole creating for God versus from God. Definitely better to create from God, you guys.
For sure.
Yeah. Preach. Does not work well. Has not worked out well for me when I try to do otherwise.
And that's the thing. When you were saying before, he didn't design us to try to do things all on our own. He doesn't need us to do anything for him. He's complete, all in himself. But he wants us to reflect him well in the way that he's designed us to. And so creating from our connection with him is such a different experience. Plus, whatever the thing is that we're creating turns out to be way better too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It always does.
Yep.
It always does.
So, do you feel like your calling has changed, evolved?
I would say that it's definitely evolved, especially from how it started. Just like a few posts and daily devotionals, and then to, okay, but that's kind of bland. We need some more. If I'm going to create a ministry, and ideally that it would ultimately create its own communities, and not that it would be on me, but that people would be stepping up and they would create little communities on their own. And that's a long-term thing, but just kind of in how to get there. And so because this is supposed to be where my income will be coming from, it's the idea on what to produce for content and then what to do for the Etsy shop, to then came this podcast. A lot of it has been evolving. Recently, I had a friend of mine ask how they can support me financially in the whole ministry. And so brought up Patreon, which you guys are probably laughing at me that I don't know what this is, because I guess everybody that I've asked has known what this is except for me. And I guess
that's why God puts people in your life.
Right.
See?
And so I'm like, okay, so I looked into it, and so there's different ways to do that. So that'll be something that you'll eventually see coming out, and you can have different tiers for memberships, like a subscription. And then so I've been creating different ways for what would be for each one. And so that's been really fun, actually.
It's exciting.
Yeah. I feel like it's always evolving. I have a Cricut machine. So, eventually t-shirts, and then eventually have merch out for this kind of stuff. So I feel like it's constantly evolving. There's publications that I'm working on, small books. I feel like it's just constantly evolving. I don't know that it'll ever stop. And so, yeah, it's been kind of cool.
I would love to know what little Denise would think about what you're doing right now. All of this creativity. When you said book, because the last time you talked about how you would make books and you'd staple it in the middle. And oh my gosh, she would be so excited to know that all of those things that she loved are actually being created and people are benefiting from it right now.
I think so. The first scene that came to mind is from The Incredibles, right? Where he's like big guy in his car and the little kid is in his little tricycle, and it's like, what are you waiting for? And he's like, I don't know, something amazing. I love that scene. I would imagine little me would probably be like that. And that's super healing. That's super healing for me, for sure. To be able to go back and do those things that I wanted to do. I used to do scrapbooks, a ton of different things. I just loved art and just being creative. And I stopped for a good 10 years. I wasn't doing anything. And so to have all that stuff that I'm doing now, whether it's a card that I'm sending out to a friend or something I'm drawing, whether on an actual piece of paper, on the iPad, or painting the Grinch, which she has actually a copy of, things like that. It's super healing to do that all over again and to reap the enjoyment from that. Without having whatever negative vibe in my head about things. It's been pretty awesome. So I feel like little Denise would be super excited.
She would be.
With her big hair. It was like this, guys. It was like a bell.
Like a little mushroom?
Yeah. The shoulder length. And I had my bigger glasses. Or contacts now. But yeah, so it's definitely been evolving in the best way.
Okay, so little Denise being thrilled with present day Denise. I feel like that's something that holds a lot of us back, is feeling like you said what were you? You were in your 20s when you realized, is that how old you said you were? And I was like, good thing you figured it out before you were decrepit.
I think I was still in my 20s.
Okay. I think that the feeling of I'm too old, or I should have done this earlier, or I missed an opportunity, I think that creeps in. And we might not even really be conscious of it. It might be a given that we've accepted to be true. And I wish I could say, here's this particular way to think about it instead. But I really want to encourage anyone who is feeling that to just try it anyway, whatever it is for you, because there is no such thing as too late. There's no such thing as I missed it. You may have missed an opportunity at some point in your life, but that doesn't mean that was the only one. And I feel like if you give it a shot in some form, because again, had you asked either of us 3, 5, 10 years ago what life was going to look like, would we be doing something this creative? Would we be working in ministry? We would have said no. And when the opportunity did present itself again for each of us, it felt scary. It still felt like, I don't really know what I'm doing. But the difference is you take a step, you try, you start, and it does feel a little bit like building the plane while you're in the air. But when you surround yourself with people who are encouraging and who believe in you and who are offering to help, I love that you said that, because it's not just that I've had to ask. There are other people who are like, this is what I do. If I can help you in any way, well, you might regret offering, because I'm going to take you up on that. But if you take a step, you don't have to have the whole plan laid out. You don't have to know all of the outcomes. And that feels scary. It does. Building the plane while it's in the air feels irresponsible. It feels like
reckless.
Yes. It feels like I don't know how this is ever going to work, but I can't stress enough, if you really have some sort of creative passion or something that you feel like it's too late for you to do it, that's a really good indication that that's exactly the thing you could be really good at and the world needs, and that you have something to offer there, because that thought it keeps coming back. While God has designed you to do something, the enemy wants to distort that and keep you from doing it, because that's exactly what the world needs from you. So just give it a shot. See what happens. Stay curious.
Also, 10 years from now, that time is going to pass anyway, whether you start the thing or you don't start the thing. So why not just start the thing?
Yeah. Yeah, because 10 years from now, you is going to look back at what you've started and be really thankful that you took the chance and started it.
Mm-hmm. Can attest to that. Okay, so we've talked about our calling, and I don't know that we've actually said the word career path yet. Maybe, maybe not. That can be the same thing, or that can be totally different things. And so let's talk about that.
Oh, yes. I actually really, really like talking about this. I've talked to so many younger people, younger than their 20s. Wow. And people in their 20s, and honestly, people of all ages, because again, we have this idea that we've missed it, or we should have started sooner, or whatever. But your calling and your career do not have to be the same thing. I know that might be revolutionary thought for some people. I know when I first really started to think that way, it felt so brand new that it felt almost uncomfortable because it was so new. But I know people who the job that they work is simply the way that they earn money to finance the thing that is their calling and the thing that they are passionate about. If your calling and your career line up, great. But I also know people who that's really diminished the joy for them in their calling because it has become more of a strain. It's become more the job than the thing that brings them joy. And so whatever your calling is, whatever your passion is, you can find ways in life to walk that out and to carry that out. Just the other day, I was at the grocery store, and the young man who was the cashier was such a joyful person. I have no idea what his career path is going to be. I don't think he's going to work at the grocery store for the rest of his life, but he was just so good at engaging people in conversation that I feel like that's part of his calling, and chances are he will use that somewhere in his career. He was the kindest, most entertaining person at the grocery store that I've engaged in a long time, and so he's using his calling no matter where he is. And I didn't know that I was at this stage in my life going to be a coach, but I can see how that calling showed up in different careers that I've had. And so none of it is wasted. You can still be exactly who God designed you to be and have a 9-to-5 that has nothing to do with the calling. It can simply be, this is how I earn money to then fund and finance the thing that God has designed me to do. Maybe the newer generations think this way, but I know for my generation and back, that is not you. You did the job for however long until retirement. And that was it. There was no changing careers. There was no side hustle. You did the one thing.
This was life in the late 1900s, you guys.
The late 1900s. Facts.
But yeah. And actually, it makes for interesting conversations when you are talking to the older generations, because it's not a mindset that they were used to having or even really privileged to have in many cases. And so it's just something that they may not have ever thought of. But I'm glad that you brought it up and worded it that way, because sometimes it can be confusing if it's the same thing or if you're not doing that as your career path, that maybe sometimes there would be guilt.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, some older generations see that as irresponsible or not being focused. And I think we are very multifaceted beings because we are created from a God who is also very multifaceted. And so because you have more than one area that lights you up inside, I don't think that means you're irresponsible or lacking focus or that you should have done one over the other. If you can find ways to engage in the things that bring you joy, the ways that God has wired you, they don't all have to be your career. You can find other outlets for those things. And that doesn't mean that you're lacking in some way. I honestly think when we have our outlets for the multiple things that bring us joy, we tend to feel more content. We tend to feel like life is far more fulfilling than I do this one thing as my job and I come home and I zone out until the next morning when I have to go do that job again. If we can tap into all of those ways, all those creative things that God has wired us to do, I think it ends up being far more fulfilling.
I think so too. Shout out to my ADHD fam. I know we have like 45 different things that we like to do all at the same time, and all those open tabs on your browser. That's how our mind works. But pour into those, the things that bring you fulfillment. Mm-hmm.
So kind of in line with if you have multiple passions, you don't need to cut some of those out, maybe prioritize. I don't even know if that's necessary. You got to figure that out for you. And if you're a believer, ask God, because he wants to be involved in the process. But also some of those things that lit you up when you were a little kid, some of the things that you really, really loved doing. We talked a little bit about it last time, and we've talked about it some already on this episode, but it's a fingerprint, it's a breadcrumb, it's a hint that God has created for you, that maybe that's one of the things that you could spend some time tapping back into again. Take a step into whatever those things were that you loved doing as a child. I mean, Denise is creating books. She was creating books when she was a little kid. She was doing all these creative endeavors when she was little, and they're now showing up in different ways, but we can see that breadcrumb, that fingerprint all over what she's doing now. And I mean, same with me. We've talked about the different ways, the things that we liked doing when we were kids, but that's that is a really good place to start if you're feeling like, yeah, I do have my 9 to 5, and while I like it, and maybe it is related to your calling, if you find another outlet for some of the creativity, a good place to look is, what did you enjoy doing when you were a little kid?
A clue.
Oh, nice.
That's what that is.
Oh, and you know what else? Can we just take, I don't know if I'm good enough, and just toss it out? Can we just...
Oh my gosh, can we?
Oh, and I know that's so much easier said than done, but it's just so crippling. It diminishes so much, because who gets to be the judge of whether or not you're good enough? Now, I know if it's career related, most of us have a boss. Most of us have some sort of performance review. We have some things that are indicating whether or not we're doing the job well enough. But when it comes to the creative endeavors, the things that bring you joy in your life, you get to be the judge. And be kind to yourself as you're judging your own creative endeavors. I think I mentioned last time I started doing some watercolor, and I'm not selling it. It's not for anyone else. It's because I'm having fun.
It's really pretty though, you guys.
It's because I'm having fun doing it. And 5 years ago, maybe, I wouldn't have had this mindset about it. And so I'm saying this from a place of experience. It's not just I'm saying things that you all need to do. I've experienced it, but it is so crippling to let I don't know if I'm good enough stand in the way. I was going to say something about a brand name that I probably shouldn't say, but just do it.
Yeah, for sure. Can definitely relate to that. Specifically, the first time I think I really felt that in this area, because I'm newer to not necessarily faith, but definitely being intentional about it and my understanding and relationship with God. Within the first year or so, I had joined the jail ministry. And so part of my role there was to help do some grading and commenting on these course books that they were doing, all biblical, and then also encourage them and guide them. So their mentor. And that meant I had many times where I was like, I don't know the Bible well enough. I hadn't even read the whole thing once. You need to get somebody who's more qualified, who's a pastor or somebody to do something like this. And so all these things about not being ready and not knowing if I was going to be able to fulfill the job, which in another episode we talked about God calling the unqualified and qualifying them. And I think I said that right. And so in that aspect, what I ended up learning is God had called me into this. And so God's supposed to qualify us. So I learned a ton. I was researching things because I wanted to make sure I was answering them correctly. And so it didn't even matter if I felt like I knew all the information right away or not, because that all just came with it. And so in doing all of this, in being so unqualified, I've learned so much since, so that I can help my mentees, but also just me growing in my relationship and what I know about God and how he is to me, what he is to me. So I think definitely throw that out the window about not being good enough, because it doesn't matter.
And I think the idea of perfectionism is also very crippling. And
yeah.
God has never asked any of us to be perfect. Never. That's never an expectation of his. It may have been an expectation of a person in your life. And so dig into that with him, figure out where that is and why it's there, and find ways to engage in some healing from that. But God has never asked any one of us to be perfect. He wants us to partner with him. He wants us to participate in what it is that he has laid out for us. And another nugget from the lovely Polly Hamp, she has said this multiple times, and it was one of those things where as soon as I heard it, I could tell it shifted some major things for me. But she said, there's no failure, there's only feedback.
Ooh, I like that.
Right? And so rather than thinking I need to achieve a certain thing and I need to be perfect, and if not, I fail, try it. You gain feedback from whatever it is that you, and yes, there are some things in life that we want to do things well. We want to perform well at our job. We want to paint well. We want to draw well. We want to be a good communicator. Whatever the thing is in your life, yes, there is absolutely nothing wrong.
We want to reflect God well is another one.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do something well, but when we don't do it to whatever standard we think exists, that becomes so crippling and it deters us from stepping out again and trying again, that's when it becomes a problem. So there's no failure, there's just feedback. So take the feedback, adjust, try it again. Take the feedback, adjust, try it again. It's a much, much nicer way to live.
Nobody's first attempt is that amazing work that you see now. Everybody started somewhere.
Yep.
To just show up.
Just start.
Also, I really like they're not challenges, they're opportunities.
Yeah.
That's another big one for me. Mm-hmm. That's been really helpful.
And so it doesn't just feel like we're saying these things and we've not experienced any of this ourselves. I have to say that starting a podcast, we were both super excited about it, but that's stepping into a new place, doing something that we don't really know if we're qualified to do it, if we're good enough. Is anybody even going to listen? Is anybody going to care? It's a very, very vulnerable thing to do this. And it started to feel like, well, maybe you just shouldn't even try it. And I'm so glad I recognized that for what it was. And I caught it quickly and I kicked it out. And instead I was like, okay, Lord, what do you want to say to me about this? And again, so nice of an answer, so much kinder to me than I think I would be to myself. This was something that we both wanted to do. It was going to be fun. We like spending time together. So start, see how it goes. Try it. If you record a couple of episodes and decide this isn't what we want to do, okay. So we can stop at any time, or we can keep going, or there's no.
But no, we won't.
No, we're going to keep going. Of course, there's no. This is exactly how this is supposed to look. Again, don't feel like there's a right way to do it. There's these 5 steps. It's try it, take the feedback, stay curious, see how it goes. But it still feels scary. It still feels vulnerable. It's very stretching. It's not something that either of us have ever done before. And so I wanted to add that so that it didn't sound like we were just telling you all what to do and how to do it. We're experiencing it right here in front of all of you on this podcast.
Absolutely. And I have one of the really neat perks of having this one as a friend of mine. So I have my own little coach here. And so we talk about things that are helpful for us and things that we're doing and suggesting and that might be helpful to you. And that doesn't come from reading from a textbook and saying that to you, but because we've experienced it for ourselves, even just doing this podcast with things that happen in life outside of the topic that we're discussing. I personally have had some very difficult moments and we'll sit here and have our own little therapy sesh before we start recording on something, and those things are necessary and it's just part of it. It's part of the journey. So yeah.
Find your people.
Yeah. Find your people. People you can grow with.
Yeah. That will encourage you and support you and be in your corner. It matters.
It does matter. So that's what we had for you guys today on this episode as we wrap up the calling from where it started into how it's going, because this is how it's going.
It is going.
So thank you for joining us for that ride. We are having a lot of fun with it, and we hope you are too. All of our 2 listeners, maybe 2.
Well, we're going to listen. So there's 2 right there.
At least 2. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast, Prodigal Peas in a Pod. I'm not sure how you found us today, but just want to make sure you know all the platforms we are on, and those are Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon Music.
And if you would like to reach us directly, you can send us an email at prodigalpeas@gmail.com.
So since this podcast is a merge of both of our brands, mine is Misfit of Creation, and if you're looking to get more information on that, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, and the Etsy shop, which is where you can find all those downloadable tools and products.
And if you'd like to find out more about my coaching practice, you can find me at blueprintheartandmind.com, where I have a blog, totally free. Come check it out. And you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.
I think I get it now. I need to be myself because a copycat can only do so well. In love with everything that makes me who I am. Don't need a backup. backup plan. I hope they understand that I'm doing better today. I got me a mission that got some fruition. You down to stay out the way. Can't seek validation from people who hating. I got my mentality straight. Shout out to God, I've been keeping the first. He been working and paving the way. And now I can guarantee you that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live. Way to live.
Oh, I don't golf.
Me either.
Passionate about that, unless it's mini golf.
Are you good at mini golf?
No, but I love it. It's fun.
That's how I feel about bowling. I'm not good, but it's fun.
It is fun. I'm not very good either.
I know. There are some people who think they don't understand I can still have fun even if I'm not good at it.
Oh no, that's crazy.
Are you a competitive person?
No.
Oh, me either. I think that's why we can still have fun even though we're not good at it, because it's not about being good at it. It's just about doing the thing.
Yeah. That's why.
We should go mini golfing together and bowling, and we can just laugh at how terrible we are, but still have fun.
Oh, it would be such a fun day. Let's do it.
Okay, great.